Hi, everyone. Welcome to PageStarter with Lisa Furland. I am joined today with Damien Patterson, aka Damascinus, who is an author and artist who extracts artistic inspiration from his varied life experiences. He is originally from the Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago, and he immigrated to the US and served in the US military in the US Air Force for more than a decade. As a disabled combat vet, he aims to demonstrate through his words and art that one can overcome life's challenges and become their very best self. Welcome, Damien. Thanks so much for being
Hey,
here.
hi Lisa. Thank you for having me.
Yay. Okay, so we are
Yay.
talking all about, your experience as a debut novelist,
Mhm.
and sort of how you got from A to B, and sort of a little bit more about your story, your background, because I find that who you are as an author is so much more than what we see on the page. So start off just by, telling us a little bit more about yourself and your history.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm originally from Trinidad. I spent about 19 years there. And I immigrated here in 2002. I went to LA. Um, Ended up homeless within 4 months of immigrating here. Yeah, it was pretty scary. Eventually someone took me in and I was going to community college, working multiple jobs. And then one day a recruiter on base at the military, a Marine recruiter saw me and he said, hey, you look like, I like the way you walk. I like your posture. You're very pleasant. I think you'll make an upstanding Marine. So I went into the military recruitment center, and while I was waiting on him, the Air Force guy walks over and was like, "Hey, you don't want to join the Marines. You want to be in the Air Force. You look like you have a brain. You don't want to eat crayons for the rest of your life." And so I took that as VAB score and scored really well, and I opted to go into the Air Force because I wanted to have, I think they gave me the best opportunity, especially as an immigrant, to get some skills and some things that can translate once I left the military, right? And it was the best choice for me at the time. I subsequently did 10 years, had multiple combat deployments. Um, I started off as an administrative guy and got into intel, special operations, that sort of thing. And then I exited at about right after 10 years because I was stationed in Hawaii and then my son was born. And after my last gig, my last tour, I realized that it wasn't conducive with my lifestyle. Because when I was gone, right?
Mhm.
So coming back, I remember seeing my baby, and it was like, okay, well, I grew up without both parents, so for me, it was a huge motivator for me to be there. And in my line of work, you either stay long enough to become the villain or die, right? So I wanted to be around. So that's essentially what happened. And then I transitioned into being a contractor in support of the intelligence agencies. And I, my background is counterterrorism. That's what I'm really good at, right? So writing a novel, a fictional novel, is there are a lot of parallels, but it's also worlds apart from anything I've ever done before, right? It's a whole new world. There's a lot of creativity involved, and on one hand, in my former life, I was destroying things. Now I'm creating things, and that's a good feeling, right? Like where you're, actually creating something for people to enjoy. Um, and so yeah, that's how I got to the journey of being a writer.
That's crazy. That's so you went from being homeless within months. So you immigrate and you immigrated by yourself, right? So
Yep,
you
yep,
you made this big journey, new country, new culture. LA is its own culture, honestly.
yes,
And found yourself homeless, and then all
yep,
of a sudden found yourself under the warm, comforting umbrella of the US military, where they will
right,
take care of you. They provide structure,
right.
discipline, all of these great skills that I'm sure you needed at that point. And what a ride. And then 10 years later, you have a family, you have stability, and security, and then you transition into full-time career in counterterrorism. That's amazing.
Yep, yep,
That's
yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
amazing. And so
yeah.
when you were writing the book, how long has this work been in progress? How long have you been working on your novel?
Yeah, so I started writing the novel about 3 years ago. It started off as it was during the pandemic, and we have a Lomi stick, which is a Hawaiian, it's a shaved guava stick. And it was sitting on the near the fireplace, and my son, all the kids are home from school, right? He's like about 8 at the time, and pandemic kicks off. He's driving us nuts, right? We're like, okay, now we got to be the teachers, right? And I'm like, oh, I still have my regular job, but I've got to teach this kid, homeschool him, right? And there was so much uncertainty at the time. So I said, you know what? Why don't you write a short essay about that stick and it being a magic stick that you found? And he was like, I don't want to sit. So I said, come on, just do it and I'll give you a reward. So he sat down and I talked to him about the story, the plot development, and he wrote one sentence on it. Dante finds the magic Lomi stick in a forest. That was it. And from that, the story was born, right? Because I was like, hey, this kind of seems interesting. And I think this is where it kind of takes a bit of a dark turn because shortly after that, I got hurt. I had a medical incident that went really south, and um, it was near fatal, and it left me permanently disabled. I had like 15 surgeries in the space of 5 weeks, and it was really tough on the family. My son came to the hospital um, about the third week while I was there, and I'd lost like 70 pounds, and it just looked really bad, right? And I remember being on the bed and I'm like, wow, how did I end up in the very place that I tried to avoid, right? Where I told you the reason why I left the military was that I didn't want to experience this or be in this situation. And here I am. It still inevitably happened, right?
Mm.
Um, and I resigned myself. I said, I made a deal with myself. I said, if I came out of this alive and um, coherent and everything, with all my faculties in place, that I was going to, it was kind of a love letter to my son in a way. I said, you know what, I'm gonna take this essay. His name is Dante. And of course the name of the book is Dante and the Magic Lomi Stick. He was born in Hawaii. And I was like, I'm going to at least write a short story about it or something as soon as I'm able to. Because there's something about, I think what people take for granted is that when you don't have the ability to do something, it's when you thirst for it the most, right? Like I hadn't done art for like 20 years, right? I hadn't done art since I left Trinidad. I hadn't written anything creative in such a long time. And then when I came out, I remember while I was healing, while I was relearning how to walk, I had such a thirst for like wanting to create and put because I couldn't take anything for granted anymore. Like, okay, tomorrow is not guaranteed. Better get this on a paper, get it out there before, you know, so that was essentially the motivation. And that's what started the journey.
Hmm. That's a huge wake up call. So you had never written anything before. So did you take any like craft classes, like how to write a novel, how to write dialogue? Did you do anything?
No, I haven't done anything like that, creative writing. I did a lot of the writing that I did for my degree and just on the military side of things. Like people always commented on my ability to present something. And they said like when I presented something, even though it was in some cases, because if you're doing counterterrorism missions or you're doing anything like that, you have to give an account of what occurred, especially with intelligence reports and stuff like that. So they said I had an ability to put things in a way that they were sitting in the seat and experiencing it. My descriptive devices are very, just like the way I speak, right? It's very emphatic. It's very, um, so that essentially was the feedback that I was getting. And the way my brain works, it's weird. Things that happened to me 20 years ago that are of significance, I can literally feel that emotion. I can quiet my mind, close my eyes, and I could get right back to where I was in that moment. I could feel exactly how I felt when I was homeless, right? I
Hmm.
can feel all of that in this moment. So, and it's a big asset to have as a writer, right? Because you can channel all of those feelings into the words, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. And in your book, I don't want to give anything away, but we do want to talk about it, is that, Dante, the main character, he goes through a lot. He loses his dad.
Hmm.
So in a way, it's like a little autobiographical if, things took a different turn, like you're kind of
Right.
writing an alternate universe, a parallel universe kind of situation. And when he discovers the magic Lomi stick, the US military is after him as well. So how much of your experience did you really weave into this book?
Oh, a lot, a lot. And remember, even though I came out on the positive side of things, I do have friends and people that I served with and under me that aren't here today, right?
Mhm.
And I've seen firsthand what that has done to the family and those they leave behind, right? It's like a void and an ache that. So I again, like as an empath, like I can completely channel that and I could feel that and I could, my military experiences, even among military folks, is very unique. But I wanted to present the story in such a way that when kids were reading it, that they can like feel what some kids are experiencing, right? And we all have unique experiences, but again, to have a mother or father that passed before their time in combat or through military circumstances or whatever, every year I lose a friend, right? So that's just a reality in my world. So it's pretty tough, but I think with great care, I really try to not exploit, but I try to you know, explain or
Mhm.
to convey versus exploit. I didn't want to, dishonor the people, in terms of or make anything trivial, so.
Mhm. Yeah. And the target age group of this book is, a little older, so 10 to 15 or so. So they can
Right.
definitely handle grief and war, and they can handle all these heavier topics. They can even handle it younger, I think. I believe.
Yeah.
I believe kids are
Yes.
extremely aware of the world around them and are exposed to loss just like the rest of us are. So, no, I think it's great. So, what would you say, given that you've overcome so much in your life, and what would you say to any of your readers, like the young readers who are, I mean, we know studies have shown that there's a lot of loneliness. Kids these days are not really connecting with each other like how you and I grew up. And so there's a lot of challenges that they're facing. So what advice would you give them if they're going through a big struggle right now?
Yeah. I think having a community helps. Having one or two people that you identify that you can rely on helps. I know the instinct sometimes when we're going through trauma or struggle or pain is to withdraw within ourselves. But that's the actual opposite of what we need to do. If we keep our hearts opened, um, believe it or not, like if you may have 10 bad things happening, there's that one good thing that you may miss out on that can really change it for you, right? And I think it's just having I think resilience is tied to optimism, it's just the longing for a better tomorrow. And you touched on something earlier about target demographic. I think when you talk about kids being able to handle these things, I wanted my son and kids in American society and Western society to know that the things that are so far-fetched to them, they're actually a reality for a lot of kids in the world. I
Mhm.
grew up without running water, right? For the first 7 years of my life, I had to go down a hill to get a bucket of water with my grandma for the day, right? And if you spill it, you'll get whacked on the head. What do you do? So, and this is not a reality that my son will ever experience, but kids are still dealing with that. A lot of kids are in poverty. A lot of kids are in active war zones. I mean, in my travels and in my missions, you can imagine that I've seen kids affected by that firsthand. So they're a lot more resilient than you would think. And I think while we don't want our kids to experience that, I think them having an understanding or having insight into what that looks like, I think it develops empathy and sympathy, right? So which are key factors in navigating everything. So
100%, 100%. We
yep.
definitely need, to foster more empathy in our children and our teenagers and more resilience by introducing challenges that challenge them that they can handle
Right.
in ways that force them to step outside their comfort zones and try new things
Yep.
without the trauma,
Yep.
like,
Yep. Yep.
but
Yep.
we can build
Exactly.
resilience without trauma. We
Yep.
absolutely can. And I think, yeah, I totally agree that we need more of that. So I'm so glad that your book introduces these topics in a way that allows them to have these conversations with their teachers or with their parents about, what they're reading. So that's great. So, if you could only reach one reader, like let's just imagine that this is not going to be the case. But if only one person ever read your book, what would you really want them to take away from reading Dante and the Magic Lomi Stick?
Um, I think I'd want them to know that even if you don't come from an ideal circumstance, or even if you think you do, like no one's perfect, no situation is perfect, right? I believe that, you know, every day is a new opportunity for you to turn it around. If you had a bad day at school, if you had a bad moment with your parents, and I'm not even talking about something on the scale of the trauma that we talked about before, but some of the challenges that middle class kids face, right, in the US, where, oh, I had a bad day at school, I got picked on at school. Every day is an opportunity to turn it around. And that's a key part of resilience. Don't fall too deep. Don't make the days consecutive, right? Like, buck up, have a little bit of courage, because courage is not only a physical thing. It's an internal choice at times to take not the path that feels better, but the path that you inherently know is right.
Mhm.
In our book, Dante, um, in the book Dante, he has a lot of pain. And now he's imbued with these magical powers, and these creatures are coming after him. And the one quality that stands out with Dante that I wanted to actually took it from my son. My son has such an incredible heart. And I almost think like sometimes he has amnesia because he'll be disappointed by something, by a friend, or someone will be mean. And then 2 seconds later, he's like, you know what? I forgive him. And he's back, and he chooses love all the time. And I love that about him, right? Us adults become cynical after a while, right? We become really cynical. But Dante, throughout the book, when he gets these powers, he's really faced, when you get into book 2 and book 3, you'll see that the stakes get even higher. And he learns some really devastating truths that he can either use his powers to destroy, or he can use his powers for love. And I don't want to spoil it, but we'll hope that he makes the right choice, right? So
I hope he chooses to use his powers for good. But it's great, and it's great to know that books 2 and 3 are already there, because right now book 1 is available for pre-order on Kickstarter, and as of today, as of this recording, you already have 52 eager readers who have pre-ordered the book, and the project is 82% funded, which is
yep.
absolutely incredible. So early on in the campaign, so definitely, I will link to that so that everyone can go check it out because it is such a good book, and it's so interesting. Is there anything else? I think kids really need these stories of a really cool main character who is, it's such a different take. I mean, I haven't read any books with Hawaiian mythology for
Right.
middle grade fiction. So I think this is a really underutilized, under discussed uh, genre of mythology and folklore in kid lit and middle grade fiction. So yeah, it's about the Hawaiian mythology. How much research did you put into, weaving that into your book?
um I have this like formula where it's like, if I spent literally 40 to 50 hours a week writing, I probably spend 100 hours, 75 to 100 hours on research. Because as compared to, let's say, Greek mythology or Norwegian mythology and stuff like that, Hawaiian mythology is actually intertwined with practice religion today.
Mhm.
So like there are folks, there are kumus, Hawaiian priests. When you see the hula, I think a lot of times people conflate. They think that it's all tourist based, but there's two types of hula, right? There's a hula for the tourists, and then there's the more sacred hula, which you know, honors the goddess. I think it's Laka is the goddess of hula. Um, and she's also in the book as well. And I really had to do research because the way the mythology is based, there's different versions, different stories. Like for Maui, for example, like in one version, he captures the sun and he's like this demigod. And in another version, he meets his end after like some monster eats him or something like that. So there's a lot of different versions, right? And you know, it's you have to be very careful. You have to be folks are very sensitive about it. I had to do my research. I did a lot of library research, online materials, a lot of open source research, which kind of ties into my background. And then I went back to Hawaii in the middle of writing the book to, I went to the Bishop Museum, which is in Oahu. And there's a lot of artifacts and a lot of stuff there that talks about the history of Hawaii and the culture of Hawaii and the mythology and everything like that. So I had to go back and ingest everything. I figured that it had to be, for it to be authentic, I had to get back to the island, not as a military guy, but as an author that was now just really inhaling. Because when you're there at mission, you're at Pearl Harbor, Hickam, you get busy, right? Like you're doing work. You're not really enjoying the island, right? A lot of folks go to Hawaii for tourism, but it's that side to it too, right? That side about nature and all of that that's intertwined. And I think I really, in fact, I don't know if I mentioned, I had a Hawaiian priest, Kumu, who she was one of my readers, one of the beta readers that I had. And she said she learned new things in the book.
Wow.
So yeah, which was like, I was like, okay, yeah, you can actually read this and learn things about it, right? It's educational as well. So
That's amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I think again, I don't know enough about Hawaiian mythology. I think I was just introduced to it when the Disney movie Moana came out, and I was introduced to Te Fiti and Maui. But yeah, I think, reach out to the Dwayne Rock Johnson, and reach out to him and say, hey,
who
here's a book
knows?
that I think you'd be interested in.
Who knows, Lisa? I want to be successful enough to where you can become my full-time manager, right? Like that's the goal, right? I mean, like,
Well,
yeah, like,
I mean, why not? You gotta reach out. You miss the 100% of the shots you don't take, right? You just gotta
right,
go
right,
for it.
right.
Gotta go for it. Reach out to them.
Well, it's
Yeah,
funny you say The Rock because the kids at my son's school, they call me I'm the Pebble because I'm a smaller, poorer version of The Rock. So,
smaller pores. Yeah, I mean, the Rock ripped his gate off the hinge. So I'm
right,
not sure anyone expects you to do that,
right, right,
to bend iron. I
right.
don't think anyone expects you to do that. So it's good. Well, David, anything else you want to add before we conclude?
Yeah, shameless plug. Like this is the proof copy that I'm doing final edits on. I ordered it. Um, and it's a book, right?
It's a real
It
book. How does
is,
it feel holding it in your hands?
oh man, it's so surreal. It's unlike anything that, you know, it's up there, right? I've had people on my mission, post mission. I've had people thank me, hey, thanks for saving my life, or thanks for, and it's up there because it's even though I'm doing it for everyone else, it's such a personal accomplishment, right? It's just I could sell one copy, but like I don't want to, but just the fact that I got it done, right? And I could join the ranks of folks such as yourself, and just giving something to the world, right? And I hope everyone enjoys and I hope my efforts translate into the reading experience.
Well, I think it definitely will, and I think that a lot of kids are going to really enjoy and their parents, because I think every parent should read what their kids are reading so they can have in-depth conversations and follow up on reading time. We're losing kids to video games and social media, and so I think having a really interesting story that has enough story and enough interesting things going on that parents and kids want to share it and share it with each other is so important. So
Yep.
I think your book is very much needed and a welcome addition to the literature field of literature in
Yep.
this way, especially since you're adding so much context on Hawaiian mythology and all of this new information, and you're bringing, really detailed, accurate background of, your military experience and sort of what's going on there. I don't know. There's always a villain in every story. I don't want to say who the villain is, but there may be multiple villains in this story.
Yes.
So Dante sure
Yes.
has his work cut out for him.
Yep.
And I can't wait to see where it goes. I have a feeling this is just the beginning of a very successful literary career for you. So well
Yes.
done. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
With
And
your help, of course, you've been so instrumental in all of this. Like your feedback, you've been on the money. So,
okay.
um, Lisa is awesome, everyone.
Damien is awesome. Well, it's good. And it's always a pleasure working with authors who have such, a commitment to excellence and are on a mission to make the world a little bit better for, especially kids. I think it's so huge. And if we can all just make our corner of the world a little nicer place to be, that's always a mission worth investing in. So everyone listening, be sure to invest in Damien's mission by pre-ordering his book on Kickstarter. There's a link below. Be sure to grab Dante and the Magic Lomi Stick. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thanks.